Well, good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 256 of the Prancing Pony podcast, where, well, Gollum's plot to betray Frodo and Sam might have succeeded, but our success is still uncertain.
Yeah, Sam's forgotten everything but fury and a desire to kill Gollum. I wonder what we'll forget over the next hour and a half.
I wonder what we'll remember.
But folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room. I'm Shawn Marchese, the Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the Man of the West, whom you do not want to catch from behind with one clammy hand on his mouth and the other on his neck, Alan Sisto.
That is absolutely right, Shawn. I will definitely use my low center of gravity to hurl myself and my assailant backwards.
I've seen it. It's not pretty.
You weren't the victim of it, though. It's a lot worse if it's your jaw that catches my shoulder.
That's right.
All right, folks. Tonight we are welcoming a few of our patrons to join us for our, I can't believe I'm going to say this, 19th quarterly Questions After Nightfall.
I can't imagine how it's going to feel when we do the next one. My goodness.
Oh, the 20th.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty intense. But hey, for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. Here at the Prancing Pony podcast, we are reading and talking our way through Tolkien's stories of Middle-earth a few pages at a time.
Usually. But once a quarter, we take a break from our read-through and welcome a few of our patrons to join us here in the common room and bring along some of their very best questions.
Now, we never have any idea what they're going to ask us, so as always, Alan and I are going to be answering questions tonight as best we can with only the resources available to us in our heads and in our recording nooks.
That's right. Now, as with our usual Questions After Nightfall episodes, aside from any possible edits for nervous coughs or time spent flipping through pages while we look for an answer, we will be presenting this as it was recorded live. All the questions and all the answers you hear in the show will have been recorded during this session.
And if you'd like to get in on the next one, go check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/prancingponypod. We record Questions After Nightfall episodes every quarter, and we invite patrons at the Elrond's honorarium tier and higher to join us.
It's just one of the many ways that we say thank you to our patrons, giving them the opportunity to join us on the show, make us laugh, make us think, and occasionally, or nearly every single time, embarrass us in the best possible way.
At least one good embarrassment an episode.
Oh, it's pretty much a given.
Now, before we jump into the questions, I want to make an amendment to our last episode, actually, speaking of embarrassing things. So, during the conversation we had last time about lust and gluttony being the sort of the trademark sins of Shelob, I made a little mistake in regards to the ranking of the 7 deadly sins and where that appears in Dante's Divine Comedy. I said that in Dante's Inferno, pride is punished lower down in the pit of hell than lust and gluttony are, which means that lust and gluttony, being the sins of Shelob and Ungoliant, are of a lower order than pride, which is the sin of Melkor and many others. Now, I still stand by that in theory, but I misspoke about where that idea actually appears in Dante's work. It's actually not in the Inferno, but in the Purgatorio.
Okay.
Pride is actually lower down on the mountain of Purgatory than lust and gluttony are, not the pit of hell. Now, that still makes it a greater sin than lust and gluttony, just because of the way that the mountain of Purgatory is structured. So the same concept, but pride actually isn't explicitly mentioned in the Inferno. It doesn't have its own circle in Dante's hell. Which I think kind of goes along with the idea that you were sharing last time, Alan, that pride is like the root sin and other sins are the fruit of pride.
You know, that fits with the idea of it being the base of the mountain in purgatory as well, right? I mean, if all the other sins sort of build on top of that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. Yeah, I think it's at the bottom also because it is kind of the greatest one, but I think you're right. Poetically, it is really nice because it's sort of the foundation of everything else. Yeah.
Yeah, you almost have to have a certain amount of pride before you can decide that you're okay to go ahead and do this other thing, right? I mean, it's putting yourself in place of the authority and making a decision as to what is appropriate, what's a sin and what's not.
Right. So, again, same concept. I think I was sort of right in theory, but because pride doesn't have its own circle, and I kind of suggested that it did.
It has a hexagon.
It's tied in with a lot of the lower sins that you find at the lower levels, but it's not like there is a circle where the prideful are punished. That's all.
That's fair. Well, thank you for that clarification. Addendum.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
We wouldn't call it a correction, of course. But now I think it's time to actually get into tonight's questions and answers. What do you think, Shawn?
I think we should.
All right. Who do we have first up?
Well, our first question tonight comes from Arthur.
Arthur, welcome back, sir. How are you tonight?
Very good. This is Arthur from Maryland, and I am, as always, happy to join y'all.
We're happy to have you.
It has been a very good recent season for us with multiple college graduations, but Even though one of our daughters graduated with a degree in psychology, I am not going to spend time exploring Elrond's family issues that caused him to leave his grandfather Tuor off the list of the mighty elf friends of old and to fail to claim the sword of his great-grandfather, the King of Gondolin, when Gandalf showed up with it in The Hobbit. I'm sure there's a lot of therapy sessions there to go through, but that's not what I'm going to ask about tonight.
No, we're not going to put Elrond on the couch tonight. So what do you have?
It actually this is something that was mentioned in a very recent episode when Sam and Frodo and our hero Gollum are in front of the bridge to Minas Morgul. And we see the Captain Witchy come riding out, and Frodo thinks, surely there was the Lord of the Nine Riders returned to Earth to lead his ghastly host to battle. And when I read that and heard it, I said, wait a minute, what does he mean returned to Earth? Frodo last saw the Lord of the Ringwraiths at the ford of Bruinen, but was told explicitly by Gandalf, no, he wasn't killed. They rise and fall with the power of their master, but their robes are gone and they're running around naked. Nobody wants to see that.
No.
So what do you think is meant here by the Lord of the Nine Riders has returned to Earth?
All right, fair. Good question, Arthur.
That is a good question.
And I don't know an answer right off the top of my head. Is it possible that Frodo just flat out forgot that maybe the guy's not dead? I mean, he did watch him get washed down the river. Maybe there's a little part of him that was hoping that he actually was dead and Gandalf was wrong.
I mean, I just taking it at face value. I mean, I'm looking at the text and, I know Arthur just read it, but looking at the text, surely there was the Lord of the Nine Riders returned to Earth to lead his ghastly host to battle, ? Here, yes, here indeed was the haggard king whose cold hand had smitten down the ring-bearer with his deadly knife.
Mm-hmm.
He must know somewhere that he's not really dead, but he also saw him die for all intents and purposes. He saw him suffer a wound that would kill the average person. So I think it's just return to Earth in the sense of being resurrected. I guess I just kind of take it at face value, and maybe Frodo's just not really thinking, maybe like what you just said, Alan. Maybe he's just not really thinking all that clearly.
Maybe return to a tangible form?
I think that's it, yeah.
I mean, he's not really corporeal because he doesn't really have a body. He only has a body when he's got robes on.
Right.
But that does give him a physical presence that he doesn't have when he's disrobed.
Return to the Earth in the sense of being restored to some sort of bodily form.
Yeah.
That is generally the form that we would think of resurrection taking, whether one truly dies or whether one is just sort of decorporealized.
Or whether one really has a body or not, I mean, they don't have a body in that sense.
Yeah.
Return to Earth. I mean, it could also be a little bit of poetic license. It's sort of like return to power, return to strength, return to his position of authority, that sort of thing.
I wonder, this is like a real shot in the dark. Is there a sense in which return to Earth implies coming back out into the open? Return to Earth from underground, maybe.
From underground, that's a fair point.
From some place in hiding, below the Earth. I'm probably grasping at straws there, but I don't know.
I think the point is, though, that we don't have to have the idea that he literally left Arda in mind. We don't have to assume that that is the case, either in reality, which we know he didn't, or in Frodo's recollection. It could just be any of those other things we talked about, returning to power, returning with a physical form, returning from a floating nothingness to, a shape that can ride a horse and lead an army.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's an interesting question, though. I mean, you're right.
It is a very interesting question.
That's a turn of phrase that I wish we'd caught at the time and discussed it then.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting catch.
Because it's not a terribly common phrase either, is it? I mean,
no.
I guess it's not that uncommon, but this isn't a phrase that I use frequently, return to Earth. I mean, do people use this phrase?
Not that I'm aware of.
So that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. Diane, you've got something to add on this.
Yeah, I thought it meant that he's no longer flying. He's returned to Earth as from the winged beast that flew over them earlier back to the horse.
Oh, that's an interesting take, because you're right. I mean, even though they don't know that was the Witch King himself, they certainly know it was one of the Nazgul.
That's interesting.
Returned to Earth as opposed to flying around on.
As opposed to being up in the sky. That's actually a good theory, too, that he's just not flying around anymore. Either way, Frodo is making some assumptions here, but I think that's fine. People make assumptions.
It's not unreasonable.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. I like that, though.
I do too, actually. I'm beginning to like that a little bit more.
That might make more sense than anything we just came up with.
That's not a first, by the way.
No, it's not by a long shot.
No.
Yeah, that must be it.
I think so.
Yeah, so here he is. Feet back on terra firma.
All right, Shawn. Well, who do we have up for our next question?
Next up, we have Jerome.
Jerome, welcome.
Hello, this is Jerome from Pennsylvania. This kind of led me on after your most recent Patreon special about adaptations.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for giving me too many books to read. Thank you.
We're
good at that. Yeah.
What struck me, that stood out for me at the beginning, you talked briefly about Tolkien's other minds and hands quote.
Yeah.
I think you kind of glanced over a little bit about written works.
Yes.
I'm probably a minority here, but I think it might be interesting to have some additional written works that kind of expand on the legendarium, fill in some gaps here and there. Maybe leave the Entwives alone just because, everybody wants that to be a mystery, apparently. If there could be somehow sanctioned or blessed by the estate somehow, what is your opinion there on additional written works being created?
Oh, if they were actually sanctioned by the estate? So not so much how Tolkien himself would feel about them, but if we could get the estate comfortable, what would we like to see?
That's an interesting idea. I mean, I admit I'm probably a little more comfortable with fan fiction now than I was 6 years ago when we started the podcast. I'm not a huge fan directly. There's not much in the way of fan fiction I've ever read that I've actually enjoyed because none of it lives up to the standard that Tolkien set. And I've often felt like it's kind of cheating to borrow characters we're all familiar with, right? It's a little bit of a laziness to me. But I say that, and then over the years, I've come to say, all right, you know what? You get new perspectives, you get new places, you get new stories, right? I can see why people enjoy that. Yeah, I mean, if we were to find something that were approved by the estate, at that point, I'd be interested in reading just about anything. But specifics, I don't know. Let me think about that. Shawn, what do you have?
Well, thanks.
You're welcome, Shawn. I've been just rambling thinking, well, maybe by now you've got
Notice
something.
I've been just sitting here quietly like, man, I got to think about this. I mean, I think it's worth pointing out that every adaptation that's ever been made of Tolkien's work has an element of fan fiction in it.
Oh, of course. Right? Yeah.
And I know that people say that derisively. It's just fanfic. You hear people saying that all the time.
That's true. I hear people saying that now about the Amazon series, but the truth is so were the Jackson films, so was the Bakshi film, so was the BBC adaptation, all of it. Yeah.
And you hear people saying it about Star Wars and all sorts of other things. Oh, it's just fanfic. If they don't like it, they just label it as fanfic. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that in a derogatory way at all. I just mean that in any adaptation, if it's going to create anything that wasn't there in the original, whether it's an entire story about, I don't know, Galadriel going and doing whatever she's doing in the Rings of Power, or whether it's introducing a character like Tauriel to do something in the story that's not there in the original, that's a form of fan fiction.
That's correct.
Sanctioned by the estate, well, I don't know what form that takes. I don't know, I guess the estate didn't take too kindly to Tauriel and some of the changes that Peter Jackson made.
No.
What attitude is the estate going to have towards something like the Rings of Power? Well, we just don't really know yet.
No, we don't.
But I guess I just want to throw that out there to say, we all have engaged in consuming some fanfic, whether we think of ourselves as fanfic readers or not. And I'm with you, Alan. I also am not a reader of fanfic. It's not something that's appealed a ton to me. It certainly hasn't appealed to me as a writer. So I've kind of generally stayed away from it. But anyway, with all that said, what would I want to see? I would love to see somebody flesh out Tuor's experiences in Gondolin.
Oh, that would be phenomenal. Tuor in Gondolin. The love story of Tuor and Idril. Wouldn't that be neat?
The love story of Tuor and Idril would be great. With Unfinished Tales, Tolkien gets Tuor right to Gondolin, gets him in the gate, and then that's all we got.
Then we're done, right.
And then the only sort of fleshed out version of the fall of Gondolin we get is the one from the Book of Lost Tales. And it's cool, but it's just incompatible.
It is completely incompatible. I was wondering what word you were going to use because that's the first one that came to my mind is it just does not fit.
It's super cool, but it just doesn't work with the later Legendarium. And I feel like we missed out on that.
I think we did.
So obviously that would be great. Obviously, I surprised nobody by saying I'd love to see the Voyages of Eärendil.
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Especially, is it in The Shaping of Middle-earth, I think, where he lists out some of the different adventures Eärendil got into?
Yeah.
And it would have been really cool to see just some stuff on that or read some stuff on that, seeing some of those adventures fleshed out. I think that would be kind of cool.
Well, I guess if you're going to say Eärendil, I'm going to have to say something about Faramir.
Sure,
so
why not?
Maybe some more of his adventures as the Prince of Ithilien,
Yeah. Oh, what about Aragorn? like some Aragorn adventures, right? When he was...
Oh, maybe fill in the time where he went as...
Thorongil?
Thorongil, thank you. Couldn't remember the name off the top of my head. I almost want to say Thorondor. I'm like, well, no, that's the eagle guy.
I would love to see Aragorn transform into Thorondor too, though. That would be really cool.
That would be a heck of a superpower, wouldn't it?
It would.
I think it would be interesting to see what's going on in the Shire while our main 4 hobbits are off on their adventure. What transforms them from the Shire that we see when Frodo leaves to a place that would welcome Sharky and Lotho in control? And how does that happen? That would be interesting.
It would be almost like a little microcosm of the fall of Numenor, I think, because you'd see this idyllic place.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Kind of get to a point where it's ready for the wrong person to come along and just, flip the switch and turn them into something fallen, something evil. I think that would be a really cool story.
Something unnatural.
Oh, also the battles in Lorien and the Lonely Mountain.
Yes, I agree.
That took place during the War of the Ring. Those would be cool to see.
It's tough because, like you said, everything that we see in adaptations is, by its very nature, fanfic of some kind. The challenge is, what about literary fanfic, right? I mean, we talked about this when we talked about The Other Minds and Hands. Tolkien made it very clear that's not what he was talking about in terms of writing literature. He didn't expect Other Minds and Hands to be writing stories. He expected them to be doing art and drama and music, but not literature. That would be the hardest hurdle for me. If the estate were to come up to it and say, all right, we're okay with this, that's going to help a lot. Getting their imprimatur would be very, very helpful for me, but it would be really, really hard for me to get past Tolkien's own view on other people writing in his world.
Yeah, I'm with you. And frankly, just nothing would ever quite measure up. And I guess the other thing is, one of the things I love about the Legendarium is it all came from the mind of one man. And I think if you start adding other literary works to it, to me, it's less impressive in a way. Yeah. And I know that lots of people's fantasy and science fiction and horror works have been built upon by other people. I mean, obviously, like H.P. Lovecraft, so much of like that mythos is stuff that people added later after him. But I don't know. For me, Tolkien is just a little different. I want it to come from him.
I think because of Tolkien's own stance on it, I would always struggle with it.
Yeah.
In written literature format. It's different if we're talking about an adaptation. That's why I'm not going to be giving the Amazon series the same kind of grief that I would give if somebody were writing books in Middle-earth.
Yeah, because the Amazon series is drama. It's a different form.
It's an adaptation, right? That's the whole point.
Right.
But I did want to bring up another letter. We talk about Other Minds and Hands, and I probably should have added this letter for a little context or a little bit of balance, if you will. In letter 292, Tolkien writes to Joy Hill at Allen and Unwin, and he'd been sent details of a proposed sequel that a fan was going to write for The Lord of the Rings.
Right.
You can imagine his dismay. And he says, I send you the enclosed impertinent contribution to my troubles. I do not know what the legal position is. I suppose that since one cannot claim property in inventing proper names, that there is no legal obstacle to this young ass publishing his sequel. If he could find any publisher, either respectable or disreputable, who would accept such tripe. I mean, he is just brutal.
And the next paragraph of that is informative too, because it's not just that this one was bad, right? I mean,
right. He'd gotten another one as well.
Yeah.
Proposal couched in the most obsequious terms, he says, from a young woman. And when I replied in the negative, I received a most vituperative letter. So he wants nothing to do with fan-written sequels.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a strongly worded letter. Yeah.
It is. Very much so. So, yeah, I'm glad you pulled that out because I realize as we're talking about this, some people might be thinking, oh, wait, well, where did Tolkien ever say that he wouldn't support somebody writing other works in his universe? And that's where it is. Yeah.
I think it's pretty clear. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's a great question.
It is. No, it really is. And I love the idea of what would we want to hear if we could,
Yeah. And I will stand by. These are things that I would love to see in a dramatic adaptation if we ever get a chance to see them. If anybody's listening who has the ability to do such things.
Well, folks, before we get back to the questions and answers, we want to make sure you know that when you finish listening to this episode, the talk continues all night long at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
That's right. Our amazing listener community, many of whom are joining us here for this episode, keeps the conversation going in all of our social media spaces, from our common room on Facebook to our Reddit community, Twitter, and more.
Now, on Facebook, just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast and be sure to follow the page, but also join the group for some great discussions.
And you can find us on Reddit at r/PrancingPonyPod, and we're also at Prancing Pony Pod on Twitter and Instagram.
And don't forget to check out our new podcast, The Rings of Power Wrap-Up, where we discuss, analyze, and speculate all about Amazon's television adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth.
That's right. We'll take deep dives into the lore behind the show. We'll talk about our favorite themes and characters and a whole lot more. So look for the Rings of Power Wrap-Up and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And check our social media at Rings Wrap-Up for more.
And now it's time to head back to the common room for some more questions. Shawn, who's up next?
Up next, we have a question from Ethan.
Ethan, welcome to the show. What do you have for us tonight?
Hey guys, this is Ethan from Massachusetts.
Great, welcome.
Got a question for you about dwarves.
Oh boy, these are fun.
As we've all heard with all the talk about the adaptation, there's been a lot of talk about dwarves.
Yeah.
And that's caused me to do a little bit of research and a little bit of reflection and think, well, what do we really know about dwarves and where do we really get our information? And looking around at The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, it looks like we get a lot of information about Durin's folk.
Yes.
Which really just gives us a good description of the Longbeards, but that leaves us with 6 other clans of dwarves.
Right.
That's
that
right.
we don't really seem to know a whole lot about.
That's a very good point.
At least I don't know a whole lot about them. So I was curious about you guys and what you might be able to tell me about the other kinds of dwarves. If there's anything about them, in the histories that might have been abandoned.
Man, Ethan, that is a good question. I know there is some information, and Shawn, I'm going to have you try to dig that up while I talk a little bit about Durin's folk, because you mentioned that we know the most about them. And of course, what we know about them comes from a lot of sources, but I think the most condensed and clear area is in Appendix A, Section 3, Durin's folk. And of course, that's when we learn about Durin the Deathless and the fact that his line never failed. And we are told that 5 times an heir was born in his house that was so like to Durin that he got that name of Durin. And he was always assumed to be Durin the Deathless that returned. And so, we learn a little bit about them there, but we don't learn anything about the other houses. We do know from the Silmarillion that Aule took the 7 fathers of the dwarves and scattered them around in different places with their wives, but that's all we know. Shawn, do you remember, I think it's in Peoples of Middle-earth, there's an essay in there that expands a little bit and tells us the names of the other houses?
That is correct. There is an essay in the Peoples of Middle-earth called Of Dwarves and Men. And actually, that wasn't what J.R.R. named it. Actually, Christopher gave it that name. He says this long essay has no title. But yeah, it's basically an essay about the dwarves and about the relationships between dwarves and men. And as you said, that is in Peoples of Middle-earth, Volume 12. There's still not a whole lot there on the other races of dwarves. So that's where we read, and there's a lot here, and it's not written in the most easy to parse out way. So let me just kind of run through this. But basically, we're told that Durin awoke alone, and his awakening place was at Mount Gundabad, which was therefore revered by the dwarves, we're told.
Right.
Then it was the fathers of the Firebeards and the Broadbeams that both awoke in the same location, somewhere in the north of the Arid Lindon. So that's the mountain range at the very western edge of Middle-earth in the Third Age. But of course, at the time of their awakening, there still would have been Beleriand to the west of that. But that's in those mountains. And of course, we know that in the First Age, Belagost and Nogrod were 2 major dwarf cities that were in that area. So possibly some of their descendants occupied those places. We just don't really know for sure. Then we know of 2 other places of awakening. One was the place where the Iron Fists and the Stiffbeards awoke, and then another was the place where the Blacklocks and the Stonefoots awoke. And we're told, though these 4 points, so the 4 locations of the awakening, though these 4 points were far sundered, the dwarves of different kindreds were in communication, and in the early ages often held assemblies of delegates at Mount Gundabad.
Oh.
In times of great need, even the most distant would send help to any of their people, as was the case in the Great War against the Orcs, Third Age, 2793 to 2799.
Okay.
Then we're told that, in far distant days, the dwarves were secretive and had few dealings with the elves. But going back to the 7 kindreds, we do know their names, at least.
That's right.
We don't know a whole lot more than that about them, but we do know that there was a whole lot of interaction between them. It's not like they were 7 kindreds that were completely isolated from one another. They had a lot of communication with each other. It seems like they had a lot of commerce between them. They had political alliances between the different kindreds. And we can probably assume there was probably a lot of intermarriage between them as well.
Yeah.
And so, not to put too fine a point on it, but I think what's ultimately behind this question is if you were to look at, let's say physical characteristics of different kindreds of dwarves, you'd probably see some of those characteristics shared between them, because I imagine there probably was a lot of intermarriage.
I think so.
So there's not a whole lot more than what's there. I mean, this essay kind of goes on for a few pages about dwarves, and then it goes on into dwarves and men. It's not like there's a whole lot written about each kindred. That's really all we've got.
We can, I think, assume that some of the Firebeards and Broadbeams did end up mixing with the Longbeards, because in the appendix A3, we read that the power and wealth of Khazad-dûm was much increased, for it was enriched by many people and much lore and craft when the ancient cities of Nogrod and Belagost in the Blue Mountains were ruined at the breaking of Thangarodrim. Well, we know that those were the original homes of the Firebeards and Broadbeams.
Right.
So that is likely how they ended up kind of becoming part of Durin's folk.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, one thing that didn't get mentioned at all when you were talking about the different houses of the dwarves were the dwarves that nobody really wants to talk about, and that's the petty dwarves.
Right.
They were presumably from several clans. They weren't necessarily a single clan like the others. They descended from dwarves that were exiled for evil deeds from their individual kinds. Now, that actually comes from Carl Hostetter's book, The Nature of Middle-earth. That's something relatively new. So I don't have that in front of me. I just remember reading that, and I would need to dig deeper. But my understanding is that that's the origin of, or at least one of the origins of, the petty dwarves. What we do know is that they were actually the first ones to encounter the Sindar, the elves, long before the rest of the dwarves.
Right. And it didn't go well for them.
No, it did not go well. They were hunted like animals.
Yeah.
The petty dwarves, their first name given to them by the Sindar meant 2-legged animals. So yeah, didn't go very well for them.
Yeah.
So but that's what we have on the dwarves and their different houses. Arthur, you've got something to add to that.
Yes, 2 quick things and observations. Number 1, I'm not sure about the petty dwarves, but in the Hobbit films, we met the pretty dwarves. But more seriously, it occurred to me some time ago, the first time I heard this, was as Durin awoke beneath Mount Gundabad, which then was like a very important place for the dwarves. But we hear, I think, in the Hobbit, that Mount Gundabad was the capital of the goblins.
Right.
And one wonders if this is part of the enmity between Durin's folk and the goblins/orcs. They took over their sacred place. And I'm sure somewhere there's a story in that.
I'm certain. Yeah.
I'm sure there's a story in that. Absolutely.
I bet that is absolutely, if not the root, it certainly added fuel to the fire.
Leading up to that unfortunate incident with Azog and Thror, of course.
Yeah.
The unfortunate incident. If you call an orc name carved into your forehead unfortunate, yes.
But what's interesting about that is that there's nothing to suggest that it was all one kindred of dwarves that went all bad or all good. Well, except for Durin's folk generally seem to have gone more towards the good side.
True.
But
it wasn't as though there was a bad clan and a good clan. You had people...
Right.
Just like with the houses of men, right? I mean, we had men who would betray their houses and also mankind by fighting for Morgoth. Same deal.
Yeah, but I mean, there's also the Edain, though, who, basically all the Edain went good, right? And the 3 houses of the Edain all went good. We can look at the Easterlings or the Haradrim, who, at least by the time of the Third Age, were still
very much on the wrong side of the things, yeah. Mm-hmm.
We don't know of any of them going on the side of good.
No,
the dwarves seem like they might be a little different, though, because it does kind of seem like, the petty dwarves drew from all of the different clans. And just with the amount of interaction and, commerce and communication that there was between the 7 kindreds, they just seem like they were more in touch with each other and less 7 different kingdoms, so to speak, than like even the elves were, which I think is very interesting.
I think that is interesting. All right, Shawn. So, who do we have up next?
Next up, we've got Jim.
All right. I'm waiting for the really bad pun. Just get it over with.
What do you think I am, that I would have a pun? No, I was just thinking about the chapter coming up about the choices of Master Samwise, and it made me reflect on other choices made by others in the Legendarium, like when Beren was faced with the horrible choice between either risking his life to get the Silmaril from Morgoth or to give up the love of his life, Luthien Tinuviel. Now, a Silmaril is the greatest of all elf stones, I guess you could agree. So I guess you would say in the end, Beren chose a lesser of Tinuviels.
Oh, man. I knew something bad was coming. I was
just
right.
Terrible.
Something wicked this way comes.
Indeed.
I tried that out on my daughter Emma, and she wants to let you know that even without context, it was horrible.
Yeah. Give her my condolences because she had to endure that before we did.
She needs them. Yeah. So.
All right, Jim, what do you got for us?
Also, on the subject of dwarves, I was looking at the chapters taking place in Moria, and beforehand, you've got Gandalf in front of the gates trying to figure out how to open them up and saying, hopefully it'll still take just a few tries and I won't have to go to Gimli for the secret words of the dwarves since the language that they teach to no one.
Right.
And yet he exhausts the words open in every language ever spoken by man, orc, or elf. And he doesn't go to Gimli for these secret words for the dwarves. No. Now fast forward to the Chamber of Documents. It's like Mazarbul or something like that, where Balin is buried. And you've got the book, and Gandalf picks it up and he starts reading the book. Wouldn't you expect the book to be written in the secret language of the dwarves? I mean, I know that they talk about how it's written in the runes of Dale and of Moria, and also there's some Elvish script in there as well. But by and large, wouldn't you expect they'd be using their secret language? And if so, how's Gandalf reading it?
Well, I don't think that we would expect it necessarily to be in their secret language precisely because they would want it to be readable by somebody else. And therefore, they wouldn't put it in their secret language. At least, I don't know. That's where I'm thinking. Shawn, what's your initial thought?
I mean, we know that they kept their language secret. So I'm inclined to think that they wouldn't write their records in Dwarvish because that creates a record of Dwarvish. But then again, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, certainly the tombstone of Balin was written in Dwarvish or partly in Dwarvish.
I think you might be right. Let me go back to the text and see if I can actually find this. No, it's written in the tongues of men and dwarves. You're right. So there is...
Yeah, the bottom row of the runes is actually...
Yeah, the bottom row must be in Khuz'dul.
So maybe they would have written it in Dwarvish, or at least partly in Dwarvish. Now that's interesting because part of the Book of Mazarbul was written in Tengwar. We know that it was written in the runes of Moria, runes of Dale, and here and there in Elvish script. So I would think that the lines written in Elvish script, at least, were probably written in Elvish or Westron. I don't know that we're told that there's a mode for writing Khuz'dul in Tengwar.
Well, we know that Gimli says the Elvish script, the large bold hand using an Elvish script would be Ori's hand. He could write well and speedily and often used the Elvish characters.
But he doesn't say the Elvish language, does he?
But he doesn't say the Elvish language.
So maybe it was still written in...
I don't know that Khuz'dul could be written in anything other than...
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know that there's a way of writing Khuz'dul. I mean, theoretically, you can write any language.
Well, theoretically, that's true.
In most alphabets. But we're not told that there's like a mode for writing Khuz'dul in Tengwar.
Ooh, that is an interesting question.
I tend to think that the whole book was probably written in Westron.
That's my thinking as well.
I don't think that any of it was written in Elvish or anything like that. I think it's all Westron.
Think about the fact that they were trading a lot. Well, these guys were not, right? Because they were just there to try to reestablish the colony. But originally, Moria was trading with the elves and with men, mostly with elves. And so would have been using some sort of common tongue with their records.
Yeah.
They would not have been using the secret dwarven tongue. So when reestablishing the colony, would Balin and his folk have stuck with that tradition, or would they have gone ahead and just kept it to themselves and used their own tongue? I tend to think that maybe they didn't write often in that language. Just like you said at the beginning, writing it creates a written record of it. And so they would very rarely do it, maybe very special moments or occasions, like the last line on Balin's tombstone.
Yeah, so going back to Appendix F for the little bit that we know about the use of the Dwarvish tongue, or Khuz'dul, Appendix F has a few paragraphs on the dwarves, and it says, "It was according to the nature of the dwarves that, traveling and laboring and trading about the lands, as they did after the destruction of their ancient mansions, They should use the languages of men among whom they dwelt. Yet in secret, a secret which, unlike the elves, they did not willingly unlock even to their friends, they used their own strange tongue, changed little by the years, for it had become a tongue of lore rather than a cradle speech, and they tended it and guarded it as a treasure of the past. Few of other race have succeeded in learning it. In this history, it appears only in such place names as Gimli revealed to his companions, and the battle cry which he uttered in the siege of the Hornburg.
At the end of that section, by the way, it says something interesting. Their own secret and inner names, their true names, the dwarves have never revealed to anyone of alien race. Not even on their tombs do they inscribe them. So now that doesn't mean they don't inscribe names on the tombs, because we see that with Balin. But let's remember, that's not his secret name.
Right.
Okay. That doesn't mean they don't inscribe names.
Right. No, that just means Gimli's name is his mannish name. It's his Westron name.
Right.
It's not whatever secret name he has. And yeah, they don't even write on their tombs what that secret name is. But they do write names on the tombs, and they do apparently use Kuzdul on the tombstones, though they use it to write the names in Westron.
Exactly.
So we've got, Balin Fundinul Uzbad Kazadumu, I think it is.
Right.
On the inscription on the tombstone. That is his Westron name, even though the rest of the inscription is in Kuzdul.
In Kuzdul.
I think what we're told here about the fact that they use their strange tongue in secret.
Yeah.
I think, well, there's that, and there's also, they use the languages of men among whom they dwelt. It doesn't say that they use the languages of men among men. It just says that their custom is to use the languages of men, and that is their cradle speech. That's what they teach to children.
Right.
So that tells me that Westron is the language that they use for everyday speech, and that is probably the language that they wrote in. Yeah. They don't write in their vernacular, even though they may use their vernacular when they're speaking amongst themselves. Honestly, it's not all that different than it would have been in the early Middle Ages, where you might find people speaking Anglo-Saxon to one another or Old English with one another, but then for many hundreds of years, all the records were still written in Latin because that was the language of writing and that was the language of record keeping. So I think that's what we're seeing here is they probably would have written the records in Westron for various reasons and not in Kuzdul.
I think so. I'm going to throw in a wrench into that, even though I agree, and I think that's where I land as well. The line that it had become a tongue of lore rather than a cradle speech. Lore makes me think of written material, but is that necessarily true? Can lore be only spoken lore?
Lore can be only spoken lore. Yeah, I would say so.
Okay. I wasn't sure. I was thinking of how the men of Gondor would often use Quenya as scholarly language, so to speak, a language of lore.
I don't think lore means written lore necessarily.
I don't think so either. I just wanted to throw that out there as a possibility and say, all right, well, let's figure out how to make that not fit.
Kind of thinking of the concept of a lore master, right? A lore master is not somebody who necessarily has a lot of books.
No, a bard could be a lore master. Right. He's somebody who knows all the stories, but hasn't written a single one of them down.
Right, exactly.
All right, Jim, you've got a quick follow-up on that.
Just that we could verify this if we could get hold of the model of the book from the Chamber of Mazarbul that Tolkien made. Remember, he created a book and he chopped it up a bit and burned it and tried to come up with a duplicate. Depending on how dedicated he was to making an exact duplicate, he might have actually written inside the pages, and then we could just read what it was that he wrote.
Well, we do have pages from the Book of Mazarbul in a number of different editions of The Lord of the Rings, if I'm not mistaken, the 50th.
And I think they're all written in Westron, actually.
They're all written in either the Dwarvish runes or the Elvish script, but they're all written in Westron. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was a good question, Jim.
That's a great question, though. I love that question.
I really liked it. That was good stuff. All right. Shawn, who do we have up next?
All right. Next up, we've got Diane.
Diane. Hello, hello.
Hello, this is Diane from Philadelphia.
All right. Welcome.
Thank you. So we're all here because we so love Middle-earth.
Right.
And there's so much about it. There's the characters, there's the places, there's powers, so many different things. If you could take one thing from Middle-earth and bring it into the real world, what would it be?
Oh, wow. Oh, wow.
Oh, that's a tough one.
That is a tough one.
It's not the One Ring. It's probably not the Silmarils. Those things are bad news.
Well, the Silmarils, I don't know.
Silmarils just bring trouble everywhere they go.
That is true. Somebody's bound and determined to say they're a descendant of Feanor, that they are oath sworn to go after them. And well,
Maglor's still out there. He might just come knocking and, Ask Hornback. Wow, that's a tough one.
Hobbits?
Bring hobbits into the real world? That's not a bad answer.
I love the idea.
Why don't you elaborate on that a little?
A group of pastoral folk who love the countryside and a well-tended farm, and who just love to sit around at the pub and talk and visit, and they study genealogies and they don't really worry about the outside world. But Shawn, I'm surprised you haven't mentioned Eärendil. I thought for sure that's where you were going.
Well, that's because Eärendil is in the real world.
But that's true. Venus.
Right? I mean, I look up in the sky and I can see Eärendil.
Oh, Venus. Yeah.
And that, I think, is what makes this such a hard question to answer, because
I know. Boy, this is tough.
Deep in my heart, I still think of Middle-earth as the ancient past of our world.
Right.
I mean, of course I know that's not true, but I mean, the idea is that is the ancient past of our world. And so
that's the conceit. Absolutely.
What would we want to bring forward from that? I think if I had to choose one thing, it would be the stories. It would be bringing that lore to the real world, because I love mythologies. When I was a kid, I loved reading Greek mythology. And when I was a little older, I loved reading Norse mythology. And then when I was a teenager, I read Tolkien and I loved reading his mythology.
Right. It feels just as real as the other ones, right?
It does feel just as real as the other ones. And I would love to be able to tell my kids those stories growing up as if they were true.
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
I still tell those stories to my family. Like I'll tell the kids the story of the two trees at dinner, and like they know those stories. They know them like they know stories from Greek mythology.
Right.
But it would be really cool to have that tradition and have it be sort of the stories of my ancestry, as opposed to just stuff that I picked up in a book somewhere.
Wow. As opposed to just another collection of myths.
Yeah. Exactly. That would be really cool.
Interesting one. Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with hobbits. I think the world needs some hobbits right now, It
for sure.
It needs some quiet, peaceful people who really just don't let the rest of the world ruffle them. We could all use a few hobbits in our lives.
I like it.
Man, that's a fun question, though. And the thing is, I'm sure that's not going to be the answer that I have when I wake up tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of a question like that, is you'll answer it differently week to week, maybe day to day. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic, though. What a great question, Diane. Thank you.
I agree. I liked it a lot.
All right, Shawn, what do you have for us? We've got, one or two more here in the first round?
We've got 3 more in the first round, and the next one is Jerry.
Jerry, welcome, sir.
Hi there. This is Jerry from Washington.
Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Now, as has been discussed on the show many times, the spabimmy that resulted from Boromir trying to take the ring from Frodo was significant, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
From Frodo realizing he had to leave the Fellowship immediately, avoiding the attack of the orcs, meeting up with Gollum, taking him as a guide, and finding possibly the least guarded entrance into Mordor, to Merry and Pippin being kidnapped by the orcs, and then yada, 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 the Ents take over Isengard.
Right,
yes, I just yada, yada, yada'd Hobbit trauma.
You just yada, yada'd the entirety of book 3, yeah.
But I did not mention the Bisque. To Aragorn actually choosing to pursue Merry and Pippin instead of following after Frodo, which is what he was leading towards. And I think the most significant thing about that is him meeting the Grey Company, taking the paths of the dead, liberating Pelargir, and then coming up with the reinforcements, which ultimately tilts the Battle of the Pelennor Fields to the good guys.
Yeah.
So one could look at everything that resulted from Boromir's one act of evil and see how it all comes together, and then think rightly, there's some serious divine influence going.
Yeah.
But as we know from the perspective of the Valar, Boromir being there at all was plan B. It was Faramir that received the dream multiple times, and as we know, the Valar send the dream to the people they want to take action.
Right.
Ulmo did not send Idril a dream saying, hey, tell Daddy he needs to go build a fort in the mountains. He sent it to Torgon.
That's a good point.
So the question, finally, what did Plan A look like?
Wow.
We know that Faramir wouldn't have tried to take the ring from Frodo, so it wasn't a simple swap the brothers.
Right. What would it have looked like had Faramir come and joined the council and then gone with the company?
Exactly. And what would have made Plan A so preferable that the Valar dream spammed Faramir before they settled on Boromir?
Dream spammed. I love it. That's a good one, Jerry. Wow, this is going to be a fun little speculation.
Poor Faramir's putting up like blockers in his subconscious to keep the dream spam.
He's like, man, another unknown number dream. What is up with this? I keep telling him not to do this. Yeah. I keep hitting unsubscribe, man.
I know, right?
All right, well, that is a really interesting question. I'm going to be super excited to dive into this one. Shawn?
It is a great one. And I think we did answer a question, kind of a microcosm of this question at one point on the show.
Yeah,
I think we
like
talked
a sliver.
About, yeah, I think we might have talked about a little bit about like how Faramir would have done differently if he had been in the Fellowship instead of Boromir. But I don't think we've answered it on the macro level here.
Right, top to bottom. How does this whole story change? Yeah.
Yeah. So,
oh man,
let's talk about this. I mean, I guess the first question is, would Plan A have been better after all?
That, I was going to say, that's where I want to start, because I'm not convinced that that's the case. I mean, the Valar thought it was, but remember, it's not their Plan A. It may have been their Plan A, but the plan as it happened was that Eru's plan.
Right.
I don't know. It's quite possible that Eru's plan was always for Boromir to go, but Faramir still got the dream because that's who the Valar thought should go. Who knows? We don't know that. That part is speculation, but
yeah.
I'm not yet ready to concede that Plan A would have been better, but let's talk about it anyway like it were.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, it played out the way it had to play out. Mm-hmm. So let's discuss, what does Plan A look like, and then we can decide if it would have been better or not.
So if Plan A is Faramir gets the dream and Denethor says, fine, you go. I don't like you here anyway, which is kind of surprisingly that's not what happened.
I know, right? Well, he didn't think that he could do it, right? I mean, the elders thought that Boromir was tougher. He was, he was the one who could make it. But let's say that for some reason that doesn't happen and Faramir goes.
Boromir's busy, so Faramir goes. Okay.
To start with, does Faramir end up joining the Fellowship the way Boromir does? Probably, because he wants to get back home, right?
Exactly. He's got to get back the direction anyway. He's going to represent men. I mean, Aragorn's already there, but yeah, I think Faramir goes in Boromir's stead.
What changes on the way to Moria? Anything?
I don't think anything particularly changes in the way to Moria. I mean, Boromir is hardy and does play a significant role in helping the hobbits and everybody else, for that matter, get down from Caradhras.
Yeah, but still, I don't think anything would have been significantly different if it were Faramir there instead.
I don't know. You know, Lori does point out in chat real quick a question that actually is valid. Does he actually go with the company, or does he stay in Rivendell to learn from Elrond? I mean, remember how enamored he is of the elves as opposed to Boromir. It's possible that he just decides to stay.
He has a duty, though, to his people.
That's true.
I mean, he knows that there is war coming. He's got a post that he needs to be at. He's got men to lead.
Yeah.
He probably would want to stay in Rivendell, but he knows he needs to go home.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. He does. So, yeah, I don't think anything changes on the way to Moria. I'm not sure anything changes in Moria. I don't necessarily think that Faramir is less capable of a warrior. I think their encounter with the orcs and the cave troll, doesn't change.
Right. And the Balrog and everything. Gandalf still falls. I'm sure that
Gandalf still falls.
Turning Point still turns the way it does. What about when they get to Lothlorien? In Lothlorien is where we really see Boromir do something.
We see him under pressure there, right? Because his heart is seen, and he knows it, right? He sees that Galadriel is able to pierce his thoughts.
Well, and he goes in suspicious, too.
He does. It's true.
He doesn't want to go into Lothlorien to begin with. He doesn't trust it. He's heard the stories of the Golden Wood, and, he hears that people don't escape there unscathed.
They don't make it back out, right?
Right. They don't escape unscathed. Aragorn says, no, if you say unchanged, maybe you're telling the truth, but don't say unscathed. I think Faramir goes in with a much more positive outlook than Boromir did, and he probably is a lot less suspicious of the elves.
Right.
And he probably does not feel the pressure that Boromir started to feel there. Now, it's not to say that what Galadriel saw in Boromir, it wasn't a result of Boromir's attitude towards the elves. It was a result of Boromir having this kind of growing lust in his heart for the ring.
Right.
But I also think that Faramir wouldn't have had that.
Yeah.
So I think that everything in that whole Lothlorien chapter, I think, is completely different if it's Faramir instead of Boromir. He's happy to be there. He's not distrustful. And the elves are trustful of him because they don't see in his heart what, or Galadriel doesn't see in his heart what she sees.
They don't see him as a danger to the Fellowship.
Right.
The way they see Boromir.
And so if you see that as kind of the seed of something that grows in Boromir, like, oh, well, I'm starting to feel this weird stuff in I've had these strange feelings and I'm going through all these changes. That's what Boromir's thinking.
On a very important after-school special.
Right, exactly. Daddy, please explain to me what's happening.
No.
So Boromir has this kind of seed growing in him, and then that seed is kind of watered by the elves' distrust and kind of the probing that he gets from Galadriel. That all kind of grows, and I think it grows exponentially in Boromir, and then that results in what happens at Parthgallen when he tries to take the ring from Frodo.
The attempt to take the ring.
Obviously, with Faramir, the seed's not there. So
right.
The distrust from the elves is not there to water it, and so it doesn't spiral out of control.
Yeah, you're right. It doesn't snowball into the attempt to take the ring, right?
Mm-hmm. So what happens? Does Frodo go off on his own?
Well, that's where we start talking about the Spibimi, right?
Mm-hmm.
The way that this story needed to unfold was Frodo and Sam go off on their own, apart from the rest of the company. Nobody tries to go with them. They have to be in that small group.
Yeah.
So how does that actually take place? Well, the attack of the orcs would still have happened.
Yep.
There wouldn't have been the Horn of Boromir. That might be interesting.
Oh, that's interesting. Because it was the horn that called Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli back to Boromir's side, right?
That's correct.
To find out what happened there. Now, of course, they were too late to save him.
Yeah.
But they saw that he fell protecting the halflings, and then...
But now, do the orcs capture all 4 hobbits instead of just Merry and Pippin?
I think Frodo would have still made a decision to go off on his own, because Faramir, if he were in the Fellowship, Faramir would have gone off to Minas Tirith with Aragorn.
Yeah.
Probably Legolas and Gimli go with them too, because they're not... I don't see them going on to Mordor with Frodo.
Yeah, I think this was part of the conversation that we had.
This was part of a conversation we had because we talked about, like, what, are all 4 hobbits going to go to Mordor? And that's not going to happen.
No, that's a recipe for disaster.
That is.
That's a recipe for hobbit kebabs.
And also, Frodo was struggling with the idea of going off on his own, but it was Boromir's attempt to take the ring from him that pushed him to finally do what he kind of thought he had to do anyway.
Exactly. He already knew that was the decision he needed to make.
Right.
He just was pushed over the edge to make that decision then and there.
So if Boromir had not done that, if Faramir were there and Frodo was not feeling that pressure, he probably wouldn't have made the decision to leave when he did. He probably would have still made that decision eventually.
But would he have made it in time before the orc attack?
Exactly. I don't think he would have.
No, I think that would have been a really interesting situation. Let's assume, because now we want to keep going with this speculation, let's assume that he did, so that he gets away, and that Faramir dies protecting Merry and Pippin in Boromir's stead, but Legolas, Aragorn, and Gimli, well, then again, they wouldn't have all been split up. So Frodo and Sam go off on their own. The reason Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli were not with Boromir was because Boromir had not been with them, because he'd gone off chasing Frodo to try to take the ring.
Right.
Faramir wouldn't have done that. Therefore, Faramir would have still been with Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli.
And they would have just gone off to Minas Tirith together.
Right.
Probably with Merry and Pippin.
Right. So then Merry and Pippin don't get kidnapped. And, well, then you end up with Isengard on the back side of the battlefield there, no longer in the hands of the Ents because the Ents aren't roused.
Right.
Oh, boy.
So that's not going to go well for Rohan or for Gondor.
No, because that's the problem. Exactly. You end up with Isengard still in the hands of Saruman. Now, all of a sudden, Gondor is not able to get the reinforcements from Rohan.
Right.
Oh, boy.
Also, Boromir's command was not among the Rangers of Ithilien, was he? He was the captain of the forces of Minas Tirith.
Right. He was the head guy. He was the general that overran the whole thing.
Right. So his post would have been command in Minas Tirith somewhere, not out roaming in Ithilien. So when Frodo and Sam stumble through Ithilien and they're picked up by Anborn, of all people, he's going to shoot them because he thinks they're a squirrel.
Boss, I shot these squirrels.
Right.
You're absolutely right.
I shot these 3 squirrels. I'm going to go shoot them. My boss isn't here to tell me not to.
That's a very, very good point.
That doesn't go well for them.
No, it does not go well at all. Boromir maybe gets the report that the Rangers of Ithilien shot a couple of small people and this ragged thing that they had with them, but that's about it.
And also, Anborn's come back from the field with a new piece of jewelry, and he's saying he's boss for some reason?
Right, exactly.
We're not sure what's going on
Suddenly he wants a promotion. What's up with that? Man.
I'm going to shoot all the squirrels.
I wonder if other squirrels have rings.
King Anborn. King Excellent Anborn. I'm going to shoot all the squirrels and the kingfishers, too.
Have squirrels 3 times a day. Oh, wow. Man. No, yeah, that's exactly right. Boromir would not have been in Ithilien, almost certainly.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe because they were expecting forces from the south, maybe he would have been there. But I have to think you're right, that he wouldn't have been there, and it would have been Damrod and
Anborn and Mablung and all those guys.
All those guys in charge.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I think if Faramir goes, I don't see this playing out well.
No. Even if they get out of Parthgalan, even if Frodo and Sam leave on time and everybody else survives the orc attack.
So let's rewind to that point, and let's assume that they don't get out of Parthgalan. Let's assume that Frodo is captured.
Okay.
They see a hobbit carrying a ring. Oh, that's the one that Saruman's looking for. We're going to capture them. We're going to take them back to Isengard.
So they take all 4 hobbits back to Isengard.
Or at least Frodo. We don't know about the other hobbits because they only took Merry and Pippin because they knew to look for halflings, right?
Well, they knew to look for halflings. They were supposed to not search them for anything.
Right.
So
well, that's true.
I think they do take all 4.
Okay.
Oh man, this is fun.
Let's say they take all 4 hobbits to Isengard.
Okay. And now I'm just hearing Legolas, they're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Do they get to Isengard? Because the men of Rohan still come upon them. Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's also still all that fighting, except now they're fighting over a hobbit that actually has a ring instead of just some hobbits that are messing around pretending to have the ring.
Well, at one point, Frodo's going to put on the ring.
That's a good point.
I think, to try to get away.
That's a good point. Are the Nazgul going to spot him then?
Ooh.
Are they going to detect that?
Oh, man. That's an interesting point because they do end up at a couple of points. Well, no. When do they fly to see Saruman? They fly there after Saruman basically, or after the orcs report that they've captured the hobbits. So
there was already a Nazgul in the vicinity, remember?
Because, on the other side of the Anduin.
We determined because of the timeline, there was no way that the one Pippin saw in the Palantir could have been sent because of...
No, he wouldn't have gotten there quickly enough. Right.
Right. So there must have been one patrolling the area somehow.
If he puts on the ring and you've got a Nazgul in the air, that's it, folks.
That is game over.
Absolutely. It's game over, man.
And there's just so many ways that goes wrong if Frodo's there.
There's so many game overs. This is like those write your own adventures, the books where you've got and every possible ending is bad.
There's only one way to survive, but everything else is like, turn to page 5. Oh,
you died.
You died.
Turn to page 5. Yeah. Oh, you died. Turn to page 7. Oh, I might survive. Nope, you died violently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I don't think there's a way that this turns out right.
We've got both Jerry and Joe in the text saying that this is Doctor Strange seeing the one path forward in Infinity War. That's exactly what it is. It's like all the different ways that it can fail, and there's only one path forward.
There's only one path forward. Really great question, and that was a lot of fun to talk about. We've got a couple of hands raised. We're going to go ahead and get quick comments. Jerome, you first.
Okay, I was just curious. I think of this question. Did the Valar knowing Boromir, knowing Denethor, did they give this dream vision to Faramir first, knowing that eventually it'd be Boromir going anyway?
I don't know that the Valar have that much knowledge of. Would they have known that Denethor would end up sending Boromir instead of Faramir? I don't think so.
I mean, you got to wonder if maybe Mandos did, but it's not like anybody ever listens to Mandos.
Well, and Mandos probably wouldn't have said anything,
right?
Even to his brother who's sending the dream. Because it is his brother, right? It's Irmo and Namo. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Lorien's sending the dream. And hey, brother, who should I send the dream to? I will not tell you.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think they probably send it to Faramir because Faramir is the one that's more receptive to the dream.
I mean, they might put the dream out on like wide beam.
Maybe.
On broadcast. And Faramir is the only one who picks it up all the time.
Could be.
Who knows?
Or they know that Faramir is going to pick it up or is going to think about it, whereas Boromir just thinks... Boromir, oh, that was a weird dream I had. And then just...
Or he's like me and he just never remembers any dreams he has. Yeah. He wakes up and goes, I had this weird... I don't even remember anymore. Where's my coffee?
Maybe Faramir is the one who's more receptive to it. And he would be the one who'd be more receptive to it. But do the Valar know that Boromir is going to go anyway? No, I don't think they do.
No.
They don't see that, and that's okay. Because it's possible that this was an act of free will on the part of men. Yeah. And Ilúvatar just turned it to his will.
And that's the thing. Because men are involved, I think you have to consider that, this is outside the scope of the music.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Arthur, you've got a question or a follow-up here.
Yeah, I was thinking of another aspect of this. Faramir is at the Council of Elrond. We know that Faramir is a Númenórean. Faramir is a wizard's pupil. He's into the lore. He stays, does not go off on the quest because there's all the books and all the lore masters and everything. Fast forward a couple of months, while Aragorn is in Edoras trying to escape from Éowyn with her fluttering eyebrows because he's spoken for. Faramir is in the gardens of Imladris saying, hey, Arwen, darkness unescapable.
No. I should ban you just for proposing the idea.
Man.
No, I'm kidding. Yeah, no. Arwen's fully betrothed here. It's they've pledged their troth back on Cairn Amroth. I don't think Faramir is going to try to weasel his way in on an engagement.
Well, he probably doesn't know that, but she probably, puts a hand out pretty quickly and says,
"Oh yeah.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. You're a nice young man." I like my men a little bit older. I mean, I would have preferred 3,000, but I'll take 87.
Truly robbing the cradle at that point.
Boy, you're not kidding. Yeah, I guess what's the difference between 87 and, 40 when you're thousands of years old? Yeah,
but still.
Good point.
Yeah. How does Elrond react to that?
I mean, not well.
Because Elrond didn't even think Aragorn was good enough.
Get
right?
out, Faramir. There's the door. Thankfully, Faramir really is, very responsible man, is aware of his duty, and absolutely leaves Rivendell with the Fellowship. So
thank goodness.
All right. Well, after that, on that note, let's go ahead and get to our next question. Who's up next?
Next up is Lori.
Welcome back, Lori. How are you tonight?
I am so incredibly happy to be here. It's been a long time since I've been able to join.
Yay! We're so glad
Yay.
you're happy
to have you.
I'm happy.
Yes.
So hi everybody. This is Lori in Washington, about an hour away from Jerry in Washington, who we just heard from, who had a fantastic question.
Pacific Northwest, represent.
I know, Great Haven smile, woohoo!
That's right.
Yeah. So I've got a question about Saruman tonight. Go backwards a little bit.
Okay.
Let's go to last season. I was recently reading The Voice of Saruman, chapter 10 in book 3. And by the time of this chapter, as we all know, and as the characters in the book at this point know, or at least the characters involved in the chapter know, Saruman has been defeated, utterly defeated. His army is destroyed. Right. Isengard is destroyed. All that he has left is Orthanc and his voice.
Yeah.
And we know that he still holds great power in his voice. And the chapter focuses on the effect that Saruman's voice has on those around him. He's a Maya, right? He's not going to be completely defeated easily.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I got to wondering, I was reading it again. I was reading Gandalf's words to Saruman. I got to wondering two things. Is there any small part of Saruman that when he is offered a path to redemption by Gandalf actually does yearn to repent and follow that path and join with Gondor against Mordor? I mean, is he even capable of repentance at this point, right? And if he had done so, what aid could he actually offer to Gondor at that point? What power is left to him aside from his voice?
Great question. I love it because not only do we get to maybe revisit that a little bit, I love how she assumes we actually remember things from last season. We'll have to look it up.
I know, right?
But it gives us a chance to speculate with another set of what ifs. I love that.
Indeed.
Well, let's go back to that chapter and see if there's maybe at that moment of repentance, what we have that suggests maybe, just maybe, he would have considered it. All right, so here is a passage that gives us maybe a slight hint. So Gandalf has just said, "Listen, Saruman, for the last time, will you not come down? Would it not be well to leave it for a while," that is Isengard, "to turn to new things?" First you get the shadow passing over Saruman's face, then it went deathly white. Then we read this: "Before he could conceal it, they saw through the mask the anguish of a mind in doubt." Okay, so that gives us the possibility that, maybe repentance is still on the table, right?
Yeah, he's uncertain.
Loathing to stay and dreading to leave its refuge. For a second, he hesitated, and no one breathed. Then he spoke, and his voice was shrill and cold. Pride and hate were conquering him. So I think there was a chance. That was it. And it's the most literal blink and you miss it moment.
Gandalf certainly thought there was a chance because he did offer him that chance, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you had trust in the enemy. Isengard has proved less strong than your hope and fancy made it. So may other things in which you still have trust, meaning Sauron's might.
Yeah.
Would it not be well to leave it for a while, to turn to new things perhaps?
Yeah.
Come on. Last chance. Come join us.
Last chance. This is it. So definitely a chance. I think it's consistent with what we've read before that, not only is every character given a chance to repent, I think for the most part, we see, at least a little bit of at least a recognition that they ought to.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, even with Sauron, for instance, at the end of the First Age when Morgoth was captured and Thengaradrim thrown down.
Yeah.
He appeared to be, trying to do the right thing. How long that lasted, not for very long. I think here's a chance. But Saruman, what is it? It's pride and hate.
Yeah.
Pride and hate.
Now, I want to talk about what he might have done if he had made a different choice.
Yes, this is the fun speculation.
That is. But first, let's talk about the pride and the hate. Where are the pride and hate coming from? Notice that the text says he's loathing to stay and dreading to leave its refuge. It's meaning his mind. Dreading to leave its refuge.
Right.
So he's miserable where he is. He knows he's made a mistake. He knows he's defeated. Yep. And he doesn't want to stay where he is, but he also dreads to leave his refuge. I don't know. He doesn't want Gandalf's forgiveness, I think, is part of it. That's the pride and the hate.
That is the pride and the hate right there.
He believes that he is better than Gandalf. He still believes that he's better than Gandalf after everything that's happened.
Why would you accept the forgiveness of somebody you think is beneath you?
That's right. There's absolutely no way I'm going to accept that forgiveness. That's the pride.
That requires a humility that he simply no longer possesses.
Yeah. And that is why he makes the decision he does. Yes, he had a chance, but knowing who he is, he was always going to make the choice he made.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. He had a chance, and there's still just a glimpse of a conscience in him.
Yeah.
But I think we also get a hint that maybe it's less conscience and more fear, right? And I don't want to leave this place. I mean, what was driving him to possibly repent? Fear that it was no longer be a safe place to be. This wasn't a genuine moment of regret or doubt that he was doing the wrong thing. It's more like, I don't really want to stay because this place clearly isn't safe, but I don't want to go with them. It's not.
Maybe so, yeah.
Maybe I have done the wrong thing.
No, that's true. Yeah, loathing to stay and dreading to leave its refuge. He's not pondering the decisions he's made.
No.
He's pondering what's best for him now.
It's still self-interest, isn't it?
Yeah, it's safer to stay or safer to leave.
Yeah.
That's an interesting point. It's all narcissism still.
It is. You're right. That's exactly where I was going too. It's all about his own self-interest.
Yeah.
What's best for him, and not how his decisions affect other people. But let's assume that he did repent.
Yeah. What if he had?
What's the thing that he offers?
Well, first of all, he's had communications with Sauron. He must know more about Sauron's plans than they've gotten from him. Maybe he knows some things that they only learned from the Palantir in the actual story. Maybe he could share some information about what Sauron's planning to do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they get some of that from the Palantir, but maybe he tells them other things that they don't get from the Palantir.
Right.
So they might learn about some of Sauron's plans. He knows a lot about orcs, right? He's commanded orcs, not very effectively, but he's commanded orcs.
Yeah, that's true. He's commanded them. I'm not going to say he's led them.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He hasn't been much of a leader.
Well, I mean, obviously he still has Maiar power. He still has wizard power.
True.
Now, he's not like Gandalf 2.0, so he's still limited, but how much of that limit is, shall we say, a hard limit, and how much of it is you are expected not to reveal all these powers, right?
Right. Or what if Gandalf's like, dude, just let me kill you, and then they'll send you back. It'll be cool, man.
Yeah.
It'll be Saruman 2.0.
Stand still. I'll try to make sure this doesn't hurt very much.
Yeah, that's like a weird bet to take.
Boy, yeah, you're not kidding. We do know that he had the ability to slow down the three hunters, right? To sort of prevent them from moving fast through his area. You wonder if he would have had that ability maybe to slow down an orc battalion? Could he have had some tactical functions?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Seems possible.
Having two wizards is never a bad idea. I mean, if one is good, two must be at least partially better, even if it's not twice as good.
That's true.
The problem is, could they ever trust him? Even if he had repented, would they ever have believed it was a complete, genuine repentance and not purely self-interest?
I think if Gandalf trusted him, Gandalf would convince the others to trust him. But he would never be trustworthy, so I just don't really see it happening.
That's the thing. I think that if it were a genuine repentance, Gandalf would know it and would trust him, and then everybody else would trust him.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if it wasn't a genuine repentance, he'd still be an Orthanc.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But boy, if he had a genuine moment of repentance, he could have offered some real help.
Absolutely. And plus, he's got all of his knowledge of, his mind of metal and wheels, right? I mean, he knows a lot about machines. Maybe he could come up with some cool siege engines or something to help. I mean,
that's true.
Probably nothing that turns the tide of battle, but I think he's
little tactical advantages here and
absolutely
there.
Sure. Yeah.
It's a little late in the game, I think. I mean, we know that there's not a lot of time.
Saruman shows up with all these blueprints for different trebuchets and things he's designed. Like, here, Denethor, I have all this. Like, they're at our doorstep right
exactly.
now.
They've just crossed the Anduin. They're going to be here within hours, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. That was a fun question, though, because I just love those speculations. What if, right? This has been a fun one.
What ifs are so fun. I do love what ifs.
They really are. Jim, you've got something to add to this real quick before we move on.
Well, just as that scene is, Gandalf tells Gimli that it couldn't have gone any other way, or it could have gone either way. It came down to a knife's edge, and I wasn't really seeing it was a knife's edge of anybody turning to Saruman, because he tried his voice, and then Gimli yelled at them, then he tried the voice again, and Éomer said, basically, watch out for this snake in the grass, and tried it again, and Theoden turned him down, and then Gandalf broke his staff. So I begin to think that the only thing that came down to a knife's edge was Saruman himself wondering whether he should stay or go.
Yeah, possible.
Yes. So Mary says, he will have guessed, surely. Were they likely to end any other way? Gandalf says, not likely, though they came to the balance of a hair. But I had reasons for trying, some merciful and some less so. Yeah, I think really what he's talking about coming to the balance of a hair really is Saruman, is Saruman's redemption. Right. He had reasons for trying to redeem Saruman, some merciful and some less so. I think what he means is some reasons were merciful.
He's of my kind, right? I've known him for thousands of years. Yeah.
I want to give him a chance to redeem himself because I know that he was great once.
Yeah.
But then some were less merciful, some were more tactical.
Right.
Some were more...
Having him at our side would be an advantage. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's what it is. I think that's what came to the balance of a hair more so than any chance of them being convinced by Saruman. I think it's more about Saruman having a chance to redeem himself is what he means there.
Yeah, I think so too.
But it's a good comment.
It is. Thank you for that, Jim. All right, Shawn, so we've got one more here in round one. I'm not sure how much time we'll have for round two, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Who do we still have up?
All right, so to close out round one, we've got Joe.
Excellent. Joe, welcome, sir.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
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 This is Joe from Texas, longtime listener of the show now.
Yes.
Absolutely great to have you back.
I'm excited to be back. I haven't been able to do it for a while, so it's great to be able to do it again. I was going to ask a really hefty word nerdery question, and I think I'll save that for a different time.
Okay.
So instead, I'm going to ask, in The Hobbit, there's a reference to these creatures in the Misty Mountains called giants.
Ah, yes.
And there aren't really a lot of other references to them as far as I can see in the Legendarium. But I have been studying some Norse texts recently. And of course, there are a lot of references to giants in the Norse texts. And these Jotuns in the Norse text aren't necessarily large creatures the way that we tend to think of giants. They can be a lot of different sorts of creatures. For instance, sometimes they call witches giants. And so it makes me wonder if Tolkien is using the word giant in more of this Norse sense, that maybe it doesn't specify a specific creature. Maybe it's just a generic term for weird, evil things that we don't like.
Huh.
And I wondered if y'all had any thoughts on that, or if you wanted to speculate on the nature of the giants in The Hobbit, or however you want to take that question.
All right. Joe, that's a good one.
It is a good one, and I actually am going to answer it with a little bit of word nerdery.
Oh, yeah. And I was thinking that exact same thing, because we have touched on this before, right?
Yeah, we have. So, Joe, you mentioned the Jotuns from Norse mythology. There is an Old English word that is a cognate of the Norse word Jotun, and that word is Eoten, E-O-T-E-N, which again means giant in Old English. I assume probably with all the same range of meanings that was conveyed in Old Norse. So just like you said, it could mean a lot of different types of creatures. I'm pretty sure that Eoten, or Etnas in Old English, had the same range of meanings. In fact, there's a line in Beowulf that's, I think it's Eotnas und Ylfa und Orknes, which is basically giants and elves, and Orknes, which is the origin of Tolkien's word orcs,
right,
but could mean something like demons or monsters or something like that more broadly. So I think that even in Old English, you've got the idea that all the nasty things are kind of lumped in together. All the Ettins and the elves and the orcs, they're all kind of lumped in together. And so I think that it is quite possible that in Old English, Eoten meant a broad range of things as well. Anyway, back to Middle-earth. In Tolkien's writing, he actually borrows the Old English word Eoten, which means giant in this sense we're talking about it.
Right.
And he actually makes it part of the name of a place in Middle-earth, and that is the Etten Moors.
Yes.
So when Tolkien is talking about the Etten Moors, that word actually comes from the word for giant. But Etten Moors is not translated as the giant moors. It's actually translated as the troll fells.
That's right.
And so in some way, giants and trolls are equated.
That's where I was going to go.
Yeah, you'd kind of draw that line out, right? So if the Ettenmoors are the Trollfells, then there must be some sort of kinship or similarity between trolls and Ettins.
Well, and remember, the giants in The Hobbit, at least the ones that we see, are described as stone giants.
That's true.
Which fits with the way Tolkien had also talked about the trolls.
That's true. Now, of course, there is a big glaring problem with that, which is that there are trolls in The Hobbit too.
Yes.
And they're just called trolls. They're not called giants.
Not called, yeah.
But I think that could be explained by Joe's theory that it's just sort of a broad range of monstrous things that's conveyed by the word giant or Ettin.
I do think they are large, though. I don't think that much is in question. We get a couple of references that suggest that. 3 of them, actually, that come to mind. One, of course, is
the football one, right?
The football, right? That they were hurling rocks at one another for a game, catching them. They were strong enough that they're tossing them into the darkness where they splinter into little bits, right? So they're large and throwing boulders. So the text is actually talking about the Carrock here, about the eagles bringing Bilbo and the dwarves there. And it's described as right in the path of the stream, which looped itself about it, was a great rock, almost a hill of stone, like a last outpost of the distant mountains, or a huge piece cast miles into the plain by some giant among giants. So we get that. Now, of course, that might be metaphorical. But then we also get a reference in Inside Information. They talk about this blow that Smaug deals to the side of the mountain, but we get it described this way, like the crash of battering rams made of forest oaks and swung by giants.
All of which could just be metaphorical language.
Exactly.
But there's also one more where Gandalf is talking about the pass under the mountains through Goblin Town.
Yes.
And he says, I must see if I can't find a more or less decent giant.
A more or less decent giant. That's the other one.
So that's a very literal reference to there actually being giants in this world.
Yeah. But I do think
they must be big. I think you're right. They definitely seem like they're big based on what we get there.
Right, on what Gandalf wants to do with them, right.
Yeah. So probably not your typical orc.
I don't think they were necessarily the size of an entire mountainside as we saw in the Jackson films. I don't think that's how big they were. That was a little beyond what I imagine Tolkien was considering.
So maybe not all monsters, but maybe larger monsters could be summed up under giants, and maybe it just doesn't get much more specific than that.
Yeah. Interesting, though. Good question.
It's a very good question without a concrete answer, unfortunately.
Sadly, yeah, we do get a few of those. Yep. All right, Shawn, we don't have a lot of time left, so we're going to open up the floor to one round 2 question.
All right. Anybody have a quick one? Okay. Diane's got one.
Diane.
Yeah, I was thinking about after Valinor was removed from the circles of the world, where do they get their light?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
Oh, man, that's a tough one because I want to say, well, Valinor is removed from the earth. So it's not really removed from the circles of the world, right? The circles of the world is the universe.
Right.
It's removed from the physical earth.
From the physical earth, right.
Right. So when it's removed is when the earth is made round. Even though we're not told this in the Akalabeth, this must be the point at which the sun and moon become actual celestial bodies in space because the earth is round at this point.
Instead of carried around by the respective Maiar.
Yeah, so maybe they're not literal vessels flying through the sky like they were in the Silmarillion when it was a flat earth. I mean, that's the only explanation I can come up with because, Tolkien himself said that once the earth was round, right, it's basically Valinor's out in space and the sun and moon are what we know them to be astronomically with Arda revolving around the sun and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only answer that really works is that they must be getting light from the sun and moon in space.
They must be. And the problem with that, of course, is Tolkien never really landed on exactly how he wanted his cosmology to work.
Yeah.
A lot of this was recast a number of times. It was something he was working on very late into his life.
Yeah, because he wanted that scientific accuracy. He probably asked himself the same question.
Yeah, I'm sure he would have eventually revisited the whole idea of Legolas's incredibly keen eyes. I'm sure he would have gotten there.
He definitely would have at some point.
Wow. Good question. That's a terrible question to end on, only because we don't really have an answer.
I know.
So I'm actually thinking we need to have one more.
Okay, we can do one more.
Let's try one more. I thought I saw Jerome's hand go up, so yep, Jerome, fire away.
Sure. Hopefully this would be a fun one I'd have an answer for.
All right.
Apologies for the foreign listeners, but it's baseball season in the United States.
Cricket for those of you in other countries.
not as long, but just as boring. You have the Fellowship against the Nazgul in a baseball game.
Oh.
Who's playing what position?
Oh, that's great.
Sorry, I don't know anything about baseball, Alan. You're going to have to handle this one.
Well, let's see. The Hobbits can't cover a lot of distance, so you've got to keep them on the infield. Because if you put any of them in the outfield, their short little legs aren't going to get them to cover the gaps. They can't stop. Every base hit is going to be a triple if you put the Hobbits in the outfield. So I think you have to put Sam behind the plate. He's the catcher. He's the most sort of stout, I think. I'm going to put Aragorn at pitcher, and then I'm going to put Frodo at first, Merry at second, and Pippin at shortstop. Third base is usually a power hitter, so that's where I'm going to put Boromir. No, that's where I'm going to put Gimli, because he also would have a hard time playing in the outfield. So then you're going to put Boromir in right field, Legolas in center because he's the quickest, but that leaves Gandalf in left, and that's a problem. I mean, maybe he's on Shadowfax, and that actually works. Boy, that's tough. I mean, I guess you could just put 5 of them on the infield and let Legolas play pretty much the entire outfield. He's really, really quick. As for the 9, the Nazgul.
Well, I mean, you don't really know anything about the Nazgul, do we?
I mean, the Witch King's got to be the pitcher, but that's about it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think we can really go beyond that. We can't even put their names on their shirts or anything.
I'm missing. Who did I say was the pitcher? If I've got, I put Aragorn on the mound. That's right.
Right.
Wow. That's that's a lot of fun.
Sorry, I couldn't help with that one, but it sounded good to me.
And then we've got Faramir as the designated hitter. Sort of the honorary fellowship member.
There you go.
And we're going to put Gollum in there as the pinch runner. Wow. Interesting question, though. I really like that. That was a lot of fun. Well, folks, that does wrap it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast, but please be sure to join us again next week when we get back to the text and to the very last chapter of this book, which I can't believe we're there, The Choices of Master Samwise.
That's right. But just like I often ask my kids, is he going to make good choices or bad choices? I guess we'll see.
Yeah, well, what are the consequences going to be, huh?
That's right. Well, folks, we want to take a moment to thank the team that helps make this show better.
We do.
That's our research assistants, along with our Barlaman, Becca Davis, producer Jordan Rennells, social media manager Casey Hilsey, event and Patreon community coordinator Katie McKenna, and website guru Phil Dean.
And speaking of the website, please be sure to give us a visit there at theprancingponypodcast.com. We've got show notes, hilarious outtakes, Prancing Pony Ponderings, and our online storefront where you can get all sorts of PPP merch.
And you're definitely going to want to check out our library page. You know we love the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast, and we've provided links for you to get nearly every book we mention on the show. And we do get a few pennies from the purchases you make there, so thank you.
Indeed. And now we want to thank some more really important people, a few of whom are with us tonight, our patrons at the Kierdance contribution tier. I'm going to start with Demay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, B in California, Joseph in Texas, Kathy from North Carolina, Lori from Washington, Carlos in California, and Brian in the UK.
And there's also Ned from Connecticut, Jerry from Washington, Joe in Washington, Erwin from the Netherlands, Dylan in Australia, Ben in Minnesota, Anthony in Texas, Dorwin in Michigan, Karen in the UK, Zaksu in Illinois, Jim in Maryland, Brian in Texas, Sarah in New Jersey, Daniel in Hungary, and June in Ireland.
Wow.
Folks, thank you all so very much for your support.
Seriously, thank you.
And everyone listening, please be sure you don't miss any episodes of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever your favorite podcast app is.
That's right. And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your thoughts, comments, and most of all, your clarifications, refutations, and argumentations about any of our answers tonight to Barlaman at theprancingponypodcast.com. And if you want a chance to have your actual voice heard, you can send us audio of you asking the question by visiting podinbox.com/prancingponypod and record your question for us.
Just make sure to still send the question to Barlaman for us, please. Now, Barlaman is a lot more reliable lately, but we do get a lot of mail, so we'll get to you as soon as we can, and your question or comment may be featured on a future episode.
As always, though, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.